Welcome to the Marriage Puzzle Podcast with Julie and Thomas Hobby. We are marriage coaches who help couples with pain points about money, intimacy, and communication go from being overwhelmed to being secure in their marriage.
If this is your first time listening to us, thanks for checking out our podcast. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and a review. Let's dive into this episode. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Marriage Puzzle Podcast. Happy Independence Day if you're in the United States. This episode is launching on the 4th of July. So even though you may be enjoying your festivities and you may not be listening in on the 4th of July, we know that you'll tune in sometime during the week. So welcome at that point whenever you get to listen. We've got some exciting news. And I'm actually a little nervous. My heart's beating fast. It's like a first date for me. But as you can tell, my partner in crime, my wife Julie, is back at the mic.
Yay! I'm here. Oh my goodness. I've missed recording with Thomas, but I was gonna say I missed you.
I'm seriously nervous. Like my heart's beating fast.
So cute. I was gonna say I missed you guys, even though this is like an audio audience. It's been a month. I had a month off. And when you set out to do a weekly marriage podcast, it was really weird to not be part of it. But
you listened to every single episode while you were out?
I was here and read every Facebook and Instagram message and comment and everything. We feel really loved and supported during that time. And, but thank you, Thomas, my husband, for holding down the fort. Did an episode by himself and then with our twin boys, and then, had some guests on. And so,
yeah, big shout out to the marriage community that we are a part of. A couple of them jumped on and helped us out, and we have many more lined up that we're so willing to jump on right away, and we were getting schedules lined up for that, and Julie just happened to be able to come back before we needed more help, but we're going to get some more experts on to bring some good stuff to you guys too. So
if you don't follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Marriage Puzzle and you're like, what? Why'd you just give her a month off? I was pregnant with our fourth child and wasn't due until September 30th. But at 19 weeks pregnant, my water broke and kind of stayed on some bed rest at home, trying to stay pregnant. At 23 weeks, I was admitted to the hospital for full-time bed rest in a hospital bed. And that was the season that we thought we were going to live in until September. Mm-hmm. And that was a really, really hard season. I'm sure we'll talk about that in weeks to come. But I held on a little bit longer, and our baby Jordan Maverick Hobby was born on June 18th at 15 weeks early. So he was a whopping 1 pound, 13 ounces, and 11.8 inches long. So
shorter than a ruler.
He's a tiny, tiny one, but he's alive. And the biggest prayer request for him, because he will be a long NICU stay, probably till closer to his due date in September. So the biggest prayer request is for his lung development, because of the lack of amniotic fluid really started at 19 weeks. He's got a long journey to, on a ventilator and things like that. Mm-hmm. So thank you already for the prayers and support that people have shown to us, because as you heard maybe a couple weeks ago, we do have twin 8-year-old boys, and they were born around 30 weeks. They were in the NICU. 40-something days, and so I thought we were NICU pros. This is a different experience now, because we also have a 3-year-old daughter, so we're balancing hospital life, going to visit Jordan every day, and home life with the 3 biggers kids, and now we have a micro preemie in the NICU, so that's new.
That's actually a new term that I didn't know about until this baby was born.
Yeah, I guess that's 22 to 25 weekers are micro preemie. They get the the micro name.
Yeah.
So because he's a little guy. But if you're new to our family and listening to Marriage Puzzle, we thought Jordan would be born in September. We're also celebrating 16 years of marriage in September. But since this is our 52nd podcast episode, that means we've been doing Marriage Puzzle stuff for 1 year now.
Yeah. The actual brand, if you want to call it, of Marriage Puzzle started a little bit before that, as we just kind of got things prepared and ready for the podcast. And this is our 52nd episode. We have been doing this for 1 year. Technically, we missed 1 week in that 52.
It's been 53 weeks, but
it's been 53 weeks of time and 52 episodes.
Yeah,
so
we took a vacation.
Hopefully you guys will let us slide on that 1 week out of the year.
Yeah, but that's why I commend Thomas kept this going even with our with bed rest, and he was full-time dad and working and everything, because we didn't want to miss a week showing up for you guys, and so that's where we'll keep going. We love doing this as like our little date night, and that's why I missed it so much.
Yeah, and don't get us wrong. I mean, we're not saying that we're gonna put this before our family or our marriage or anything like that. But it was a season where Julie was in the hospital herself, and she was just kind of hanging out there waiting. And as long as I got the kids down to bed, I could record some additional stuff. And so, we will make sure that our family and our marriage is first before we put out content, because how can we lead anybody else if we've got all of that out of whack?
Yeah, and I said this is our date night. This is just icing on
the
cake. We do like to go out weekly, big date nights monthly, but now our week is like I said, we see Jordan in the NICU every day and sit bedside to care for him. It's right now every 6 hours that we get to touch him and change his diaper. We're not holding him yet. But that will come. But we still squeeze in a weekly date night where we get a sitter for our other kids, and we go see Jordan, but we add like dinner or dessert or something. Right. So we still try to have our marriage time. But that, Marriage Puzzle started we started talking about it in April of last year, launched the podcast in July, because we were on a road trip. If you hadn't heard our story, we used to live in Colorado. We're from Florida originally, and we're back there now, but we lived in Colorado for 12 years. And so when we moved back to Florida, we had to go get our second car and drive it back, just the two of us. So it was a great... I was like, if your marriage can take a road trip, it was a great bonding and talking time.
Yeah, and we've had friends tell us that they've done the same thing, and it's just the road trip, that the amount of time in the car can just give you so much time to reflect on everything that's happening in your life. And specifically, if you have kids, that you have conversations interrupted all the time. And so it's hard to just kind of keep your train of thought going and have a solid uninterrupted conversation. And so that was really important to us that we got to do that. And so we got to have that road trip, and we just started talking and dreaming and thinking, how could we do this, to go a little bit even farther back and give a little bit more backstory. Julie and I have historically worked together professionally. That's how we met. And, so we've worked together in almost all of our marriage
now. Different jobs and stuff.
Yeah. Now we're in different careers. And when I say together, for the same company, we've worked together, not just in a business or anything like that. We've done all of it, but we've worked together at the same company, or with the same company, even though it was different companies, for almost all of our marriage up until like the last 2 years or so. And so we started out on this road trip, like we're kind of missing that. We
missed
we
each
had
other.
been used to being together, at least in the same building 24/7. And so we started trying to think of what can we do that will kind of bring that aspect back into our lives, of being able to work together and put, by our powers combined, like, you know,
Well, it's
I'm
because
Captain Planet.
you had become a financial coach, and you were getting to coach people, and you know, you as an individual, and then you also had a podcast with a buddy, and so I was missing out. I was like, hey, I want to do that with you,
Yeah.
but and then now we get to be marriage coaches together. So I think that was kind of, you know, you started doing it first, but it was like, how can we do something together? And so we're like, we should do a podcast. On that road trip is when we really were like, let's just do a podcast. I'm like, will anybody listen? And what are we going to be called? And Marriage Puzzle kind of came to our mind fairly easy.
Yeah.
Because we talked about baby Jordan earlier, I have to tell, we didn't have a name for him. Like, I was pretty much in labor. Almost, we're like finalizing his name.
Yeah, we finalized it about a week before he was born.
We just didn't tell anybody too. We were still sitting on it. So you should have seen the list we had of names, you know, trying to narrow it down. But Marriage Puzzle wasn't like that. We had that on our hearts and minds pretty quickly. And it's funny because I'm like, we don't really like puzzles. But that's why that's kind of part of it. Because when you look at a puzzle, especially if it's like, you know, lots and lots of pieces, it's pretty on the outside because it's the finished picture, right? It looks like masterpiece. You want to frame it. Oh, I want to do that. And it'll be beautiful. And you open the box and it's a disaster. It's a mess. You're like, what did I get myself into? And I can never finish a puzzle in one setting, and it's just tedious. And so there's also, you know, you turn over pieces that you weren't expecting. You're like, where does this go? And how does this fit in? And so as we were just kind of talking through that, that's, I think, where we're like, that's what marriage is like. Right. It's a marriage puzzle. And really, you never complete it. You never like, you build the border maybe, and you're working on the inside, and it takes time, it takes work, and it takes two of you together. And so we're still working on our marriage puzzle, but that's kind of the backstory of why Marriage Puzzle. And now we like to talk about things that we wish people would have coached us in after 15 and a half, almost 16 years of marriage. So that's what we do.
And so it started with a podcast, and, you know, we just decided we're just going to put stuff out there and see. We feel like we've got some experience. We feel like we've got some things to say that could help somebody, and that's great. And so we just started putting it out there, and man, you guys all just showed up.
Yeah.
And at this point, over a year later, we're coming up on 6,000 downloads, and it's just been a fun ride. It's been an overwhelming ride in terms of response. Like, you know, I thought at this point we'd have, you know, maybe 25 or 30 downloads, you know, across 52 episodes, like, and most of them would be us listening back to it. Right. But man, you have all showed up. You know, as we said at the top, we've got people listening from all around the world. A few weeks ago, I mentioned that we had 49 of the 50 states. I haven't checked the data again. Delaware was missing at the time. So somebody send this to someone from Delaware. I need to complete that, that 50 piece puzzle of the United States.
Quote unquote.
And so, but yeah, it all started as just the podcast. And during that ride, we decided, you know, with what I had been doing with financial coaching before, we decided, well, let's look at that in terms of marriage coaching. And, you know, we decided to expand a little bit and start working individually isn't the right word, but couple on couple, you know, with other couples to
it's both of us
do
with
marriage
another
coaching.
Husband and wife.
Yep. And so we've started doing that, and we've had people contacting us about that, and that is just so much fun for us to be able to help people out on a granular level. This is great. We get to talk, we get to have fun, whether other people listen or not. It's fun for you and I. But we don't get to see the fruits of that. And the coaching is where we get to see the fruit, because we get to work with a couple on, you know, a private individual basis and really see what can come out of it when, you know, they can get an outside perspective on what's going on in their marriage. And how we can, help them move forward. And it's been a lot of fun to see that. And
yeah, a lot of our these recent coaching clients have come from just listening to this podcast. So, we are on social media, we have a website and all that, but I love that coaching is coming from this podcast because they feel like, this was even said, like, I feel like I know you guys, it's like, we're just being ourselves. We don't even edit these. We hit record and we just go for it.
Well,
so,
in all fairness, I did edit the one with the boys
a
lot.
Our kids.
Because there was a lot of silence that I had to trim out of it. So I don't want to give anyone the false
that was
perspective that
smooth,
we don't ever edit, but we really do try to just do one take straight up and
because you said it took so long. We're like, we don't have time for that.
Yeah.
You just get the real us.
Yeah, you guys got like a 20-minute podcast and it took me like 3 hours to create.
So if you haven't listened to that, it was like marriage advice from our 8-year-old twins.
Yeah.
It was so cute. I know I'm biased, but it's so cute. So we're just having fun on the podcast, but we do love creating content a lot from, like we said, things we learned either the hard way or things we are working on or reading about or and just learning from other people in the marriage space too, because I love when we have guests on that, it's not a competition or anything. We're just all trying to help other couples walk through this messy marriage puzzle.
Sure. And there are some of us that have our own niches, and like for us, some of the topics are our main 3 topics that we prefer to talk about are money, intimacy, and communication. And so there are plenty of other couples and marriage coaches out there that are doing podcasts and putting out content that have niches in other areas of marriage, and we love bringing them on because we know people need help in all different areas. And so we like I said at the top, we're going to be doing that some soon. We had so many people reach out to try to help us while you were out, and we're getting those all lined up.
Yeah, we'll still have guests on this summer just from the busy season that we're in with the back and forth with the NICU and our family. But yeah, we just wanted to give a quick update of why I was gone and how we're doing, and how you can be praying for us as we're just hoping Jordan grows and develops well to come home and keep this going. So we'll start talking about money, intimacy, and communication soon. But we always try to give takeaways, right? In our podcast. We'll get back to content even next week. We'll probably talk more about what we've specifically learned in this last month with the NICU and hospital stays, just in regards to our marriage. But we didn't want to end this quick update in celebration and a thank you to our listeners for your support for 1 year and counting. But yeah, you want to share the 3
Yeah,
takeaways?
so we've got some takeaways tonight, and I say tonight, we're recording it at night. In this episode, we've got some takeaways for you. We as often as possible, we want to give you practical things that you can actually try to work on right away. We're not going to do that this week, though. This week is more reminders, things that you probably know, but as everyday life happens, probably know about your marriage, things you probably know about your marriage, but as everyday life happens, they probably just get pushed to the back of your mind. And every once in a while, it's good to have them brought back to the front and just hear it again and be reminded of it. And so that's what we came up with for this episode. First, marriage is not a sprint. It's actually a marathon. And, you have to be in it for the long haul. And so we just wanted to bring that up and just remember, kind of like building a puzzle, like the finish line is farther away than you think it really is. And, it's anybody can do anything for a sprint, but or anybody can sprint for a little while, I should say. But the marathon, that's the big deal.
Yeah, I'd say don't give up. Keep running, keep on the marathon, because I think at least in our generation, what I would say I'm seeing is that our parents' generation, maybe they stayed together, they didn't get divorced, but it wasn't a good marriage or a happy marriage, or maybe they even got divorced once the kids moved out of the house. And so our generation is going through that. And so when, you know, then they get married and they're like, oh, this isn't fun, or this is hard work. I'm not going to stay stuck for years like my parents did. So I'm out.
Right.
And that's the sprint mentality instead of, no, I'm in this for the long haul. And those are kind of the people that we love coaching too, who want to keep going and keep working.
Yeah. And that leads us perfectly into the next reminder, is that both spouses need to be willing to put in the hard work every single day. And if you're not both in it for the long haul, if you're not both in it to put in the hard work, then your chances of success are going to be lower. But if you can both get on the same page and just pick each other up and say, we're walking forward together, that's how you finish a marathon, is one step at a time. And so if you're both doing it together, then you're both going to get there. And, you know, we just want to make sure to remind you that both of you need to be willing. And in this podcast, we don't know if both spouses listen in every household or if just one does. But we encourage you to, you know, if you're in a spot where you feel like your spouse is not on the same page, like you're trying to put in the work and you don't know if your spouse is trying to put in the hard work or if they're willing to put in the hard work, have that conversation with them and say, hey, I'm here to do this. I want to get here with you. Are you willing to do that with me? Are you willing to make that happen? It's going to be a scary conversation, but we encourage you to go ahead and have it so that you can both make sure that you're moving forward in the same direction.
Or I'd say, how many times a day do you send your spouse a funny reel that you saw? Maybe that's just us. That's what we were doing while I was in the hospital for 18 days away from my husband. Yeah. We would we'd FaceTime every day and he would come visit. But, you know, it's so easy to just send each other reels or funny things you see. But are you sending them the podcast you're listening to or the marriage quote or whatever that you're learning and trying to grow? Share that with your spouse as easy as you do other things.
Yeah. And the last reminder that we have for you is ask for help before you're desperate for help. And this one's a tough one because asking for help requires a lot of vulnerability. And, you know, we know that that can be a scary thing too, to let someone into your life. And, you know, Julie and I said we like to, three of the areas that we like to focus on are money, intimacy, and communication. And two of the three of those, money and intimacy, we don't, as a couple, as humans, we really don't talk about with anybody else in the world. You know, money you might talk about with your financial advisor or something like that. But aside from that, like, those are really private areas. And so it's important to ask for the help before you need it, before you're desperate for it. Allow yourself to be vulnerable to get the help that you need to move forward. And you had a stat about this in one of our previous episodes, right?
Yeah. Heard that it takes like 6 years for someone to, like, they live in a hard place. I don't want to call it a bad marriage,
right.
You know, it could even be a good marriage that needs to be better.
Right.
But they live in that for 6 years before they might ask for help. And I don't know, I just like lower your pride and speak up. Why be miserable for 6, 12, whatever years, but before you seek help. And like I said, it's okay to not wait till it's bad to then turn to good. It can be good and you're still wanting it to be better. And you should strive for that. And even if that's asking for help. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us and welcome back, Julie.
Thank
we
you.
Are
Thanks
happy
for having
to have
me.
You here.
I feel like a guest on my own podcast with my husband.
We are so excited to be back to full strength and doing this with you again. We're just missing that one micro person from our crew to be back in the house soon. So keep praying for us there. But if this is your first time listening to us, thanks so much for being here. We've told you a little bit about us and Marriage Puzzle, but make sure you listen to some other episodes.
You can go back to episode like 1 and 2, I think. I mean, it's been a long time. I should listen to it again too. But I know we did an episode specifically why Marriage Puzzle, and an episode specifically of our story, like how we met and everything. So if you're interested in that, you can go back, and then even like binge listen and catch up to this episode or popcorn the topics that you're interested in.
Yeah, totally. So check out all of that, and make sure you're following us on social media, on Facebook and Instagram. You can find us at Marriage Puzzle, and you can check out our website, marriagepuzzle.com, and schedule a free discovery call with us for marriage coaching, so that you can ask for that help before you get desperate. And as always, we look forward to you joining us back next week, where together we'll work on marriage one puzzle piece at a time. See you later.
Bye.